Thanks for attending. So quick thing, I think first things first, I think to be very honest, I wanted to be an IAS officer when I was in my first year. In fact, throughout my life before I even entered in BHU. And I think all of us have different dreams, right? You want to be a pilot, you want to be an IAS officer or XYZ, different things. I think the fundamental reasons should be very strong why you want to be something that you really want to be. So I wanted to be an IAS officer because I really wanted to change a lot of things in society, how they are today and how they should be eventually. And I thought bureaucracy is the right way to solve how democracy runs and how we can change the world around us. But eventually, I think the best part was meeting some of the entrepreneurs who had done really great. I met Faninder Sama from Redbus. I'm sure most of you must have used Redbus or must have heard about it, right? So I met him in my second year and I realized that the way he has run the business, the way he understands problem solving, and the way he has developed wealth and the team around him to execute much interesting things in life. Bureaucracy in India is still a bit dominated by democracy. So I changed my mind within a week from that interaction, and I realized that it's much more interesting to become an entrepreneur and build a really interesting company. The journey itself teaches you how you solve really hard problems, right? Because building a company looks from the outside pretty simple. You have a problem and then you solve it and all of that, but eventually it's a very interesting journey in itself, right? You understand 100 things that were not even known to you exist, right? So I realized that it's very interesting to build a large company, build enough wealth for everyone in the ecosystem, and then you can go about solving these problems in way more interesting ways, right? So I think that's where the whole course of the journey changed, and I started thinking about building a company. And I did develop. So Tanya, you were right. So I did come up with the first idea itself in my second year, which was very lame. I should not say lame, but I think all of us see that, right? So I'm sure in IIT BHU as well, all of these people who are here must be getting those college tees and all of that, right? T-shirts and all. So that was a very fundamental thing that came to my mind, that okay, the quality of these t-shirts is not nice, it's highly priced, can we customize things and standardize stuff. So Idle was a business which was started on those lines. It was a very simple business. I would not even call it a tech business. It was more an operational business. But I started developing that company. I developed a team of almost like 25 people around that time, within a month or so. Obviously in college people are very enthusiastic about a lot of stuff, so you get people around you who want to build that company, right? So we did that, and I think we learned a lot of lessons in the journey. For a lot of you, I am assuming that you are mostly in your first year, right? Tanya, am I right? Most of these guys are in the first year.
Yes, most of them are in the first year.
Got it. Yeah, so I think वो काफी interesting होता है. You are in your first year, you're just coming from your home, and nowadays I don't know if you guys are already in the campus, but now it's even more hard because you're at your homes and trying to learn something interesting. So around that time, I think what I realized was that people are very enthusiastic to develop something large because they have that sort of energy and dreams and all of that. So it's very interesting if you sort of can figure out the problem and you have a solution for that. And if you want to build that sort of a company in your early years itself, Ideal taught me a lot about company building, how things can go wrong. Because even if things go wrong in your college, you're all right because you have your parents back, and if you have everybody around you, right? You're not on your own all the time. So we did a lot of mistakes at Idle. I think in the first year, in the second year, I thought we'll build a large business, we'll make so much money and all of that. It was all dreamy, right? Very interesting dreams and all of that. Uh, None of that happened, honestly. Entrepreneurship seems very fancy, very glamorous at the outside, but the moment you jump into it, it's a very different ball game altogether, right? You have to deal with real people, and real people are hard to manage. you know in fact, even if you're not being an entrepreneur, real people around you are not easy to manage. The moment you're in the business, you're talking transaction, and that's even more interesting, right? Because then people become even more practical, so as to say. So people sort of became practical. We were not aware of that. We faced a lot of losses and all of that in the second year itself, but we sort of ended up being positive or profitable, so as to say. But I think that journey was one of the most interesting journeys, even till date. If I think about it, friends around you, building a business, and all of that. fast forwarding the entire process, in the final year, I sort of realized that I will not even sit for placements, right? The problem is if everybody wants to work with Google or Microsoft or Facebook or XYZ companies, who will innovate, right? Honestly, Google is not innovating enough. If you think about it, Microsoft is not innovating enough. Facebook is not innovating enough. They are acquiring innovators. Like Facebook, if you look at last 10 years, they have made some large number of acquisitions, right? Google has done that, Microsoft has done that. They are not innovating on their own. So can you innovate on your own? And you can only do that if you have a clear mind, if you have a vision, and if you have a sort of cloud around you who want to develop that along with you, right? So I think I was very clear in my final year after running idle for almost 1.5 years and doing a lot of mistakes that okay, let's build a large company. Okay, we have never built a company from India for the global scale. Never. Like, think about it. You guys use WhatsApp. You guys use Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I don't know TikTok. Okay, got it. It's no longer there, but PUBG and all of those fancy things, right? Even the shampoo in your bathrooms and all of that. Everything that you use today is a global product. There are very few companies. Even if you think about Flipkart, nothing against Flipkart. In fact, the chief architect of Flipkart is a very good friend, and he's a CTO, and he works with us very closely. All of these companies are great, right? Flipkart and Meesho and all of these Paytms and all. But still, Flipkart is not a global company. Flipkart has not developed the product for the US. They have not developed the product for the Australia. Like, it's all about the global scale. So I think that's where the whole journey started. We wanted to develop a brand which is like for the global audience from India. And I think we need more such entrepreneurs. We need more such dreamers, I should say, who can dream big enough. India is a large market. It's a great market. Nothing against that. Can you develop a product which a US citizen can use, which a European can use, an Australian citizen should use? We need to think like that, right? And I think because there is so much trust in the society right now, there's so much trust in the ecosystem right now, I think it's the right time for even all these young people out there to do that. But yeah, let's come to that later. But we started thinking on that lines in the fourth year. I started thinking on those lines and was very fortunate, honestly. And I think I'll be very honest on that part. It's never one person who can dream and build a large enough business or a large enough organization in general. You need believers, right? So you can be a dreamer, but you need believers who dream as big as you can, right? And I call those people founders or founding team. So very lucky to have Malhar, Rajat, Divyansh, Amit. These are like people around me. All of us started building the company, and all of these are batchmates are like 1 year senior or junior. We have that leverage, right? You guys as well. So all of you are in your first year. You will grow, and then you will have seniors, juniors to be with you. So yeah, I think that's where we started building this company called Homing Goes. Homing Goes was within 2 to 3 years of our launch. Homing Goes was the company which started. So I started that company in 2018, later 2018. The company started with a very simple vision to develop a phygital social network. I don't know how many of you understand the word phygital, but phygital means anything or everything that's a very strong relation between a physical or digital world, right? So for example, Bumble is a good example of a phygital company. Bumble doesn't depend on you swiping right or left, but you meeting people, right? That's physical, that's real, that's not digital, right? Facebook is a pure digital company. Bumble is a phygital company. Tinder is a phygital company. Flipkart is a phygital company, right? So we started thinking on those lines. Let's build one of the largest phygital social networks, and we started building Homingos with a very simple thought that social networks today are very, very fragile. Fragile in the sense, I don't know how many of you, because you guys are like, I think, much younger than me. I feel old now talking to you guys, but yeah, आप सब first year में हो, and I think which is like what 7 years or 8 years younger than me, which is a very interesting generation gap. But I still feel that some of you might have heard of Orkut. You might not have used Orkut, but आपने शायद सुना होगा, you know. So you have used Orkut. Before Orkut, there was Yahoo Messenger. After Orkut, there was Facebook. Now it's Instagram. Eventually, it'll be Snapchat or XYZ or Flam, whatever. Every few years, social networks change. You know, you are on a social network and then you change. You keep jumping from one social network to another, which is very, very fragile. Now the problem is when you jump from one social network to another, it's the whole identity lost, right? Because on Orkut you are a person with so many friends, so many interactions. All of that is lost. Now you're on Facebook, you're sharing your check-ins, or I don't know how many of you checked in to some locations on Facebook or had friends or whatever. All of that is lost. Now you're on Instagram, right? You're posting stories, which is like, I don't know, 24 hours and it's gone. It's very fragile. We wanted to build a social network which should stay forever. Like we might stay or we might not stay. Like I might die in like next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. But the social network should stay. So we started with that feel. And I think within the first 3 months of launch, fortunately, we were the most trending app on Play Store. So that gave some confidence. And I think you need some confidence in your journey throughout because you want that thing, right? So that happened, but we got a little bit paranoid. And I think being paranoid is a good thing. हमें लगा कि यार बहुत जल्दी से ऐसा हो गया है कि we are like the most we are the buzzword homingos and all of that, and I think that happened really early in the journey. I think we just raised some angel capital or whatever. I think now you guys are pretty much aware of funding and all of that. So we raised some money just after our graduation, and it was all very, very rosy, right? You have money, you have friends, you have all the fame around, articles talking about you. Everything happened. And within 3 years of being at that peak of entrepreneurship or whatever, we realized that this is all this is not what we wanted to build, right? So we developed a product which was not something we wanted to develop, or which was not something we sort of thought that is a great product. And even after we had all the success, I think at that point, at that scale, we got paranoid that this is not the company we want to build, and we changed everything. We sort of called our investors and we were like, hey, this is not something we want to do. And obviously your investors, once you raise money, I don't know, some of you will raise money and build great companies, you will realize, should not say this, but investors are not on your side, right? They want to make money, so they don't fucking care about the company that you want to build, right? So my investors was like, no, 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 don't do this, don't do that. We changed the entire course. We did not sort of work on the traction for next 6 months. We developed a very cool technology, which is now I think now we are the only company in the world to have that technology on augmented reality. We developed that, and then we launched the beta version of our product, which is now called Flam. So Flam is now an 8 months old company. We are developing a social network on Metaverse, and I can fortunately say that because we have the technology, right? So you have to have the right technology, the right product, the right use case, and then you can claim that. But yeah, so Tanya, that's your name, right? So sorry if I'm not pronouncing it wrong or anything like that, right? Great, great. So yeah, guys, right now we are building a social network on Metaverse. I'm sure all the people on the call must have been hearing about this jargon a lot, but it's nothing fancy. Metaverse is basically going to be the successor of internet, where everything will exist. So whatever you do on internet today will happen on metaverse eventually. It's going to be 100x more immersive internet with AR, XR, VR capabilities, and that's exactly what we are building at Flam. So yeah, I think that was a very large monologue. Tanya, sorry for that. Sorry for boring you all, but happy to have any questions that you really want to ask.
I think it was very, very interesting to hear your story and, all your journey. Do you guys have any questions? Like, you can start shooting them, but I'd like to go first and ask you that, this metaverse or the whole concept of metaverse is very new for the Indian audience, right? And, you as engineers have, like, how did you come up with all that technology? Like, how did you start using AR and XR and all of that? Like, you right now building a product based on AR, right? So how did you as a college student, just after graduation, started building that technology?
Sure, very cool. So Tanya, I think to be very honest, we did not have money. We did not have the expertise to develop the technology which even Snap or Pokemon Go or whatever Niantic, these companies have not been able to build, obviously. And that is something which is true for everyone. You will not. There's never a perfect timing, honestly. It's just the obsession for the problem that exists, or it's not always the problem as well. So for example, if you guys think about it, and I think all of you can relate to this, what do you think Instagram is solving? There is no problem, right? As such, there was no problem as such. Snapchat is not solving any problem as such. I don't see a problem. Ola for sure is solving something, Swiggy is solving something, but all of these much larger companies, Airbnb, I mean, you always can have more hotels to stay, right? Why do you need some stranger and whatever to stay, right? You don't need those things. It's not a problem. But sometimes I think it's illogical things that you think uh, will be very interesting, will be very, very fun. And then you go about building the MVP of that. So, for example, Airbnb was not Airbnb in the first 5 years, or in the first 2 years, I should say. You just develop MVP of that dream, and dreams can only be tested. Illogical dreams specifically, illogical dreams can only be tested on few users, and if they love your product, then go hell with the investors, go hell with logic. Just scale that. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. So we came up with the very interesting product. I don't know how many of you know about Flam, how many of you have seen the product, but Flam basically is the Harry Potter replica of magic that you can create with the real world. So you have an image trigger in front of you. You just look at that image trigger through a camera, and that image trigger changes into a video or 3D or whatever content you want to augment on that, right? So I don't know how many of you've seen. I'm sure all of you have seen Harry Potter, so the moving images and all of those posters and the newspapers and all of that. We just thought that, is this a possibility? Can we develop a social network where people change the physical reality around them? It's very boring. I see my room and the color remains blue throughout my life, and I don't want to see that. I just want to open my camera and want to see a different world. Can you make that happen for people around? If yes, why do you want that? It's not solving any problem. It's very illogical. It's as illogical as putting a monkey face through a Snapchat filter or a dog face through a Snapchat filter. Yeah, Snapchat में क्या logic है? It's a very illogical company. Filter on the face, and you're a human. You are a well-defined human, and then you become a dog or some animal or a cat or whatever shit. The fun is, people like to be cat on Snapchat. Everybody likes to see that cat version of you and not your original version. Done. That's it. That's reality. If people love you, you have won the game. And I think that's exactly what I always feel. You don't need logic to win. You don't need logic at all. In fact, you need opposite of logic. You need illogical use cases, and you want 100 users who fall in love with the product. That's what happened with us. So we sort of shipped our MVP for 100 people. We did not care about scale. We did not think about 1 million users or whatever that downloads or whatever the metric is. Those 100 people sort of called us, and that changed our life, their life. And I think that's something which gave us the reason to raise money, build a large company, build technology, and all of that. So yeah.
Right. So I think it's very counterintuitive to what we've been hearing about entrepreneurship, right? Because we've always been hearing about problem solving and change something in the society and
आप
something
बहुत
like
सारे
that.
इंडियन entrepreneurs से बात कर रहे हो, I think, and I think India has always been a problem solver in terms of, and that's nothing wrong about it. You're absolutely right. I think if you talk to entrepreneurs in India in general, even if you talk to Ola or Swiggy or whosoever in general, they talk about what's the problem you're solving. Honestly, I don't know. Facebook, I don't know how many of you know the start of Facebook, but Facebook started as a very illogical use case, hot or not. So basically you get a girl's picture in the college, you say, is she hot or not? You just swipe right, she's hot, not hot, not. Now that's not a problem solving thing. That creates problem. That sort of induces problem. It's like smoking, right? So smoking doesn't solve any problem, but it's a great product. It induces problem, you know. So I think it's very counterintuitive, but that's the reality. I mean, you can think about problem solving, or you think about illogical use cases which people love. So alcohol doesn't solve any problem, but I think all of you might. Okay, you guys in your first year, so I don't know. But in general, by the time you are in your third or fourth year, you will realize that it doesn't solve any problem. It just gives you that instant gratification for 2 hours or whatever. If you are guys like whatever, but I don't know if there's any faculty in this room, but it doesn't solve any problem. But if you feel good about it, it's So,
Right, makes sense.
yeah.
I think a lot of the freshers that I hear have a lot of ideas about, building their own things. So there's one question on the chat box which says that is is this possible in India to start a startup in our first year? Can we get funding? So, like, would you like to tell us about, how to build a startup in the college years and also your experience?
Sure. Who's the guy who asked the question? I think I'll just figure out. Aryan? No?
It's Angajala Sumana.
Got it. Okay. That's a complicated. Okay, sure. So I think no, the thesis itself is not very right. Honestly, you don't need to think about or worry about funding on the first go. To be very honest, Tanya, I think how we should look about it, and in general for everyone else as well, it's about the obsession about something which you care about a lot. So I cared about this thing a lot, that can we create a social network which lives for 100 years. Now that's an obsession because no other social network has done that even for 5 years. Now, do you have that obsession? If you have that obsession, then go about developing the MVP, get the 100 first users who fall in love with you. You don't need money for that. You don't need 1,000 people who like you. You don't need 1 million people who just download your app. You need 100 people who fall in love with you and they're like, hey Shaurya, what a beautiful app. We just love you. And can you add this feature? Can you add that feature? Once you have that MVP, once you have that sort of community which loves you, I mean, raising capital should not be a worry. And to answer this specifically, timing is not something that you guys should worry about. So it's not about fourth year, first year, second year. Like, even if you're in your ninth grade or eighth class or whatever, even if you're in your school, but if you found a problem that you care about, I think you will do a great job at solving it. And money is never a problem, believe me. Like, there's so much money out there, there is so much dry powder. People want to invest money in great people, obsessive people, so that's not a problem.
Right, it just makes sense. I mean, guys, you can switch on your mics and ask your questions. It's not necessary to put them in the chat box.
हाँ मतलब पूछ लो यार, डायरेक्टली पूछ लो.
Hello Shaurya, भैया.
शौर्य
I'm
बोलो.
Aryan.
हाँ, सब ऐसे नाम से बोलो मेरे को, है ना. और माइक अपना कैमरा भी ऑन कर लो, so I can interact more easily. जैसी भी सिचुएशन
भैया मेरा
ऑन कर लो, कोई टेंशन नहीं है यार.
हाँ भैया, मैं पूछ रहा था कि आपका स्किल सेट जैसे बेसिकली है क्या? मतलब क्या आप बहुत अच्छे से कोड कर पाते हो या फिर आप लीड कर पाते हो या फिर मतलब क्या आपके पास व्हाट वुड यू से व्हाट आर योर स्किल सेट्स मतलब एज
तो हाँ, तो मुझे तो मेरी कंपनी वाले बाहर निकालने के लिए बोल रहे हैं क्योंकि मेरे पास कोई स्किल सेट नहीं है यार, मतलब एज सच को. तो मुझे वो बोल रहे हैं कि यार आप टेक भी नहीं लिखते हो, आप प्रोडक्ट भी नहीं देखते हो, तो आप बाहर हो जाओ कंपनी से. तो this background was given to you because I think, yeah, there are few things, So for example, if you code really well, then that's a very interesting skill and you should do that. But more importantly, more than the skill, I think it's more, and I think that is something which I mentioned a couple of minutes back. It's about obsession on a dream that you really want to see in your living life, So you don't want to let it go. If you really care about something, and that's the skill set. If you're really obsessed, people are not obsessed. Like, for example, ordering food on Swiggy is hard. That's hard. So you will figure out, because so far you've been at your home, then you don't really care about ordering food and all of that. The moment you are on your own independent, if you have to order food every day, it's not easy. You have to pick up your phone, think about it, and then you don't. And it's a hard process. Can you develop, and if you really care about this problem, can you develop an application which just basically thinks like you, that okay, this is what Shaurya must be wanting to eat right now, and orders it for me. Just the moment I open my app and it just done. Now you cannot develop this app. There has been no such app. Even if Swiggy cannot solve this problem, you need another food app to do that. But there is no such app because there was no one who was extremely obsessed about solving this. So I think if you figure out a problem, and there are thousands of problems which exist in the world, right? Nothing is perfect, from SaaS to commerce to consumer. Everything is fucked up, honestly. If you really find there is a problem, and if you just discuss this, like for example, Arvind Kejriwal is a great example. He was an IITian, right? If he was not obsessed enough to change the Indian political scene, he would still be an IT officer or an IT something solving in computer science somewhere. But he sort of realized that I have to solve this, and he's there. I don't know what's his skill set, honestly, one particular skill set, but he was obsessed enough to transform the Indian political scene. And I think that's what's needed. So if you feel that Indian food scene is not correct, you have to be mad and obsessed about solving it. That's first skill set you really need to have as a founder. Second thing is, obviously you could be good in marketing, you could be good in, maybe for example, technology or product. That is all the secondary layer. The first layer is obsession. I think if you have that, that's very important.
So how big is your team? How many people are in your team?
So yeah, currently we are a 50 plus member team, and we are hiring very aggressively across everything from product, tech, growth, analysts, business intelligence, almost every department. And I think we'll be a much larger and efficient team soon enough. Yeah.
You said that not all startups are about solving problems. So how do you identify, like till now we have been thinking like अच्छा हाँ startup करना है मतलब एक problem ढूंढना है उसको solve करना है. So what about these problem inducing startups? How do you come across them? And if you want to find a startup, like grow a startup like that, in what direction do you look for?
So Aditya, I think very interesting question. I think the largest chunk of people who want to be entrepreneurs or who want to build great companies, they start with solutions. One problem is that you start with a solution. You have a solution already in place, that I can build technology. I have a great marketing skill. I can do this, that, whatever. I'm good at finance or whatever. Then you figure out a problem, which itself is a problem. So you cannot have a solution and then think about a problem. That's not the right way. You cannot find problems in the real world and then build solutions. It's more of an organic process. If you are conscious enough, and I think consciousness is one of the most important things that you should have, every one of us, because you are already smart people. So that should not be a problem. If you're conscious enough, you will figure out problems, and I think then you can build solutions for that. More importantly, you should not just think about problems. You should think about how I can make world a better place in almost everything you already do. So for example, Swiggy has already solved your problem of ordering food. Like that's what I talked about a couple of minutes back. Swiggy आपको खाना घर पे लाके देता ही है. Now you can go a little deeper into that business model or that human psychology and figure out कि यार प्रॉब्लम ये है कि स्विगी खोलने के बाद 10 मिनट तक आप खाना ढूंढते रहते हो, which is a time waste. Humans are not designed to search for what they really want to eat, because somehow your brain really knows कि मैं 10 मिनट स्क्रॉल करके भी वही मंगाऊंगा जो मैंने कल भी खाया था. That's what happens most of the times. So if you are conscious enough and you think about it, you can sort of come up with an application which says that, okay, I know Aditya really well. I know what he really eats almost 90% of times. So I will give him an option that, Aditya, do you want to choose for yourself just a 2-buttoned application? Aditya, you want to choose or should I choose? And if the application chooses, it will mostly choose what you almost eat all the time, and you're okay, you are good, you're happy. So it's all about consciousness to figure out problems. It's very organic. Otherwise, you don't even have to think about the problem. Just think about how can I make something 100x or 10x better. So that's how it
So
functions.
about that Swiggy example, so you're suggesting like how when we play songs on Spotify, it will just autoplay another song which is based on our preferences and timing and location. So
Yeah,
something like that for Swiggy.
absolutely. So Swiggy for you, yeah, food, sort of Spotify for food. That's true. Yeah, a very very high quality recommendation algorithm for that.
Sir, like you said, the same happens in YouTube also, but sometimes it gets really boring to see the same suggestions like we watch on daily basis. Means we want to see something new, interesting. So मतलब सर आपको मतलब कितना लगता है कि सेम मतलब कस्टमाइज होना अच्छी बात है मतलब
Yeah, I don't feel so. For example, now yeah, that's the problem. So when technology is introduced in deeper ways, it has both its pros and cons. That's always going to exist. So for example, if you feel कि यार ये तो मेरे को रोज ही मतलब पनीर बटर मसाला और बटर नान भेज देता है घर पे because I like that because I'm a Punjabi or whatever, like you know it just sends me that thing every day. तो यार एक दिन आप बदल दो अपनी preference. It's a very very simple thing. The point is you don't have to have your intervention every time you are ordering, but you can always change that. So for example, on Spotify as well, you get an opportunity where you can go and change the genre. So if the Spotify is playing just the sad songs because the breakup happened 5 days back and it's on loop, but now you found a new girlfriend or whatever, or a new boyfriend, whatever, so just change the preference. Play some Punjabi songs, play the breakup song, and then it'll go on that line. So you have to train the AI, but the point is who is building that AI. you know so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's going to be always a pro and con, and you have to navigate accordingly.
Sir, sir, actually, I have some
सर
sort of different.
तो सर बोलेगा उसका क्वेश्चन वेलकम नहीं है, तो मतलब नाम से बात कर लेते हैं अपन थोड़ी सी, है ना? हाँ
No, sir. भैया बोल सकता हूँ फिर.
हाँ भैया बोल दे यार, शौर्य बोल दे, बिल्कुल क्लियर है मतलब.
तो भैया एक I have some different sort of question, like what is the importance of logo for a company? Does it have some deep meaning or just randomly we select something?
Very interesting, very interesting. So what's your name? Sorry, Priyansh.
I know Ayush Kumar sir.
Ayush.
Ayush.
So Ayush, यार बहुत ज़्यादा subjective है. I think. So, for example, we changed from Homing Goes to Flam, and more now we have completely rebranded and all of that for a very simple reason, because Flam is more easy to pronounce. So on the day zero, when you are really thinking about solving a problem, this is not a problem. Like, for example, let me think about a very hard name. So Instagram is a very hard name. Instagram का कोई मतलब भी नहीं है. Instagram का आज भी कोई मतलब नहीं है. कोई मतलब, आप बना ही सकते हो तो ठीक है. गूगल का मतलब कोई मतलब नहीं है, वो कोई फालतू की बात है, कोई मतलब नहीं है. Similarly, a lot of companies, Starbucks, it's a very hard name. कॉफी कहाँ मतलब,
Yes.
कैफे कॉफी डे ने कितना लॉजिकल नाम बनाया भाई कि कैफे कॉफी डे. इट्स वेरी सिंपल. It's a daytime and you have coffee with your girlfriend or whatever. Starbucks is a very hard name, but Starbucks is a much interesting brand, much larger brand, much sophisticated brand. So I think name is not the primary thing you should worry about. Worry about the product, worry about people who love you. Eventually, if you get to some sort of MVP, and at that point you figure out कि यार नाम थोड़ा सा problematic बन रहा है, then you can change the name and think about the branding aspects. Don't worry about all these glamorous and fancy things anyways. So.
Yes, sir, भैया what happens like अगर कंपनी कोई छोटी है तो कुछ अच्छा नाम भी होता है, तो उस टाइम उसके उतने कोई वैल्यू नहीं होती. अब यही कोई बड़ी कंपनी होगी तो कुछ भी नाम रख देते हैं, वो मतलब वैल्यूएबल हो जाती है. जैसे पीटर इंग्लैंड, बस नाम रख दिया पीटर इंग्लैंड, लोगो भी वही है पीटर इंग्लैंड. देन मतलब बड़ी कंपनी का कुछ भी होता है अच्छा लगता है.
That's I think reality. That's what I was trying to tell you, that it's all about. I think bottom line बहुत simple है, Ayush. If people or in fact users or consumers, whosoever is using your product, if they love you, it's like if you love your girlfriend, if your girlfriend loves you, then your parents and her parents cannot do much about it, right? So it's about everything about the love that you can create for your product within users. If you have that love, I think investors can't do much, your logo can't do much, name cannot do much. So yeah.
Thank you.
We as
भैया
18-year-olds
हेलो
have very much.
Hey Priyansh, hi bro.
हाय भैया एक डाउट था. इफ वी हैव एन आइडिया एंड वी आर वर्किंग ऑन इट, सो किस टाइम पे रियलाइज होना चाहिए कि ये आइडिया एक्चुअली फ्रूटफुल नहीं है और वी हैव टू डंप दिस आइडिया एंड वी हैव टू लाइक मूव ऑन.
Got it. So Priyansh, I think ये thought negative है. First of all, I would say किस टाइम पे ये आइडिया डंप कर देना चाहिए तो बहुत बात की बात है, you know. पहली बात तो ये है कि शुरू कब करना है. तो this is just thing. So, you know, in general, entrepreneurship is not, as I mentioned earlier as well, it's a very fancy and a glamorous world from outside. It's like Bollywood or Hollywood. So if you have seen the movie Fashion, I don't know how many have seen the movie Fashion, but if you see the movie Fashion, you will realize that even celebrities' life is not glamorous. It's very, very painful inside. You have to like show a happy face in front of the cameras, but they're having your own problems and all. We have always seen from Sushant Singh Rajput to everyone else in the industry, people are not happy in general. Similarly is the case with entrepreneurship. It's not already happy. It's a very hard journey, you know. So you have to be positive when you at least start. तो जब आप स्टार्ट कर रहे हो तो यू शुड स्टार्ट एट अ वेरी हाई पॉइंट. डोंट वरी अबाउट फेलियर्स. बंद हो गई ठीक है, मतलब क्या फर्क पड़ता है यार. डजंट मैटर. ऑनेस्टली जोमैटो से पहले जोमैटो का नाम किसको पता है यहाँ पे क्या था? How many of you know? Everyone knows Zomato, right? किसी को नहीं पता है तो
Right,
तुम busy और मिलेनियल नहीं हो, इस कॉल से बाहर हो सकते हो. लेकिन अगर पता है तो किसको पता है कि जोमैटो का उससे पहले क्या नाम था? मुझे पता है.
सुना था रिसेंटली, भूल गया हूं लेकिन.
It was called Foodie Bay, right?
हाँ, Foodie Bay, right? Foodie Bay.
And it was a failed business sort of in general, right? Nobody cares about that now, you know. 15 years from that day, nobody cares about that. So don't worry about when it will fail, whatever might happen. Just think about how will you start, who will you start with, and are you obsessed enough? मतलब मत सोचो यार.
Am I audible?
No, yes, you're audible, but you're not visible. So I don't know why, but can you,
Okay.
whoever is speaking, can switch on your camera, and I think that will be much better.
Okay, we as 18-year-olds have very much less or limited knowledge about finance or how the actual world works. So how should we go about it?
Do you know really? Okay, what's your name? Sorry.
Inshara Bhatt.
Inshara Bhatt. Okay. So, very quick background on this. Do you, in fact, not a background, I'll build in detail, but you guys know Zuckerberg, right? All of you know. Obviously, you, the one who asked question, you also might have heard about him, right? Do you think he knows about metaverse? Or do you think I know about metaverse? No, we don't. We don't know about it, right? Eventually, nobody knew about internet 15 years back. Nobody knows shit. Nobody knows shit. If someone, or if anyone in general, even if like the founder of Flipkart or whatever, anyone comes to you and tells you that he knows or she knows shit, they don't know, you know. So don't worry about not knowing about finance or whatever. If you know about something that you, very simple bottom line is, if you know about something that you care about, you're obsessed about solving that, you will figure out. I don't know if you've read about that quote or about that statement. Entrepreneur's journey is like jumping off the cliff and then figuring out the parachute in the journey, right? Because you will die. If you don't figure out the parachute, you will die. So you will figure out everything. Finance वगैरह तो बहुत सिंपल है यार. एक सीए मैं दे दूंगा, वो सीए तो तुम्हें जो भी जिसको भी कंपनी बनानी है यहाँ पे, I will give you a very interesting CA and a CFO, so they will figure out everything finance for you. Not a problem. So there.
Hi, sorry, भैया. I hope you can see me. I'm Arunanshu here.
I listened to your whole journey. I even installed Flam. I am really enjoying it right now. So since you told about like you have a decent amount of experience about building a company with your college mates. So my question is, how do you select your founding team? Like that's very important, right? Even the investors first look at the potential that the founding team has. So how do you select the right person? Who should you trust? Whom should you not trust? Maybe you must have had the experiences where you have taken the wrong decision. So any insight you want to throw upon that?
Okay, cool. So I don't know how many of you are engaged or engaged as in have some sort of are in relationships over here, because अभी the first year में तुम्हें time लगेगा थोड़ा, engineers हो तो opportunity भी कम ही है. But in general,
भैया ऑनलाइन चालू है,
sorry,
ऑनलाइन में कहाँ कुछ
पास्ट एक्सपीरियंस है थोड़ा बहुत.
Not in college.
ऑनलाइन में कहाँ कुछ है. हाँ मतलब तो रियल वर्ल्ड में भी यार देखो, तो तुम्हें एक और जो ऑगमेंटेशन है वो क्लियर कर देता हूँ. सो आई ऑलवेज अटेंडेड कॉलेज इन द रियल वर्ल्ड. कुछ नहीं बदलता यार, सब सेम है. इंजीनियर्स की लाइफ सेम है, 6:10:1 रेशियो है. आई थिंक तुम्हारे कॉलेज में वही होगा, बिट्स में तो वही था. ठीक है, कुछ नहीं बदलता, सब सेम रहता है. बट दोज ऑफ यू who fortunately are in some sort of relationship or whatever, you will realize that eventually when you start up, 2/3 of your time that you spend in your entire life is going to be with your co-founder, and 1/3 with your partner, whether she's your girlfriend, whether she's your wife or whatever. क्योंकि यही है भाई, मतलब this is the life of a very obsessed, highly obsessed, even Elon Musk today or even Jeff Bezos today. इन लोगों की लाइफ पढ़ोगे आप, 4 डिवोर्स हो चुके हैं इनके, which is something I recommend or I admire. But ये लाइफ है because you are spending more than 2/3 of your time in your office or whatever with your co-founders. So this was a very interesting question, because I believe that finding the right co-founders is the best thing that can ever happen to you in your entire life, even better than finding your life partner, because वो तो हो ही जाएगा. अगर तुम्हें एक बार ही समझ गया ना co-founder कैसे ढूंढना है, तो तुम लड़की भी ढूंढ लोगे, लड़का भी ढूंढ लोगे, whatever. But this is the most important thing in your startup journey. I think friends are the best starting point if you are in your college, and that's the reason I think if you're in a college you should start up, you should think big, dream big. क्योंकि तब थोड़े से हम नाइव भी होते हैं, तो तब आप जब college में होते हैं ना, तो लॉजिक सब कुछ किल कर देता है. आई थिंक लॉजिक किल्स लार्ज ड्रीम्स. जैसे आप थोड़ा कॉर्पोरेट लाइफ में आते हो, मान लो आपने Amazon ज्वाइन कर लिया या फिर Google ज्वाइन कर लिया, तो देन यू बिकम लॉजिकल, क्योंकि फिर आपको 2 लाख 3 लाख रुपए महीने के मिलते हैं. देन यू थिंक कि अरे यार इसमें ना मैं इतना 4 चीजें कर सकता हूँ. आई कैन इन्वेस्ट इन म्यूचुअल फंड्स और व्हाट शिट इज दैट. जब कॉलेज में होते हो तो आप बहुत ज्यादा नाइव होते हो, एंड यू कैन थिंक कि आई विल बिल्ड अ लार्जर कंपनी देन फेसबुक. Absolutely, because you are naive. You don't even know the strength of Facebook or the size of Facebook. So you can be naive enough, and you can find idiots around you who are your friends who are similarly naive. तो फिर वो बहुत अच्छे 3 बेवकूफ लोगों का ग्रुप बन जाता है कि यार फेसबुक से बड़ी कंपनी बनाएंगे. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स द स्टार्टिंग ऑफ गुड थिंग्स. You find idiots like you who are super obsessed. So I think for you guys, I think it's the right time. 18-19 year age is the age, you know, right now in India. Find friends around you who are crazy like you, obsessed like you, and build a large company. So yeah, it's very important. Find the right co-founders.
स्किल सेट भी तो होना चाहिए ना, कि जैसे किसी को ये काम आता है, किसी को ऐप डेवलपमेंट आता है, किसी को वो चीज आती है, किसी को मार्केटिंग आती है. हमें तो अभी कुछ आता ही नहीं है.
पड़ेगा ना ब्रो. तो फॉर एग्जांपल आई थिंक यू Dhruv, right? So Dhruv, you cannot be just emotional. So for example, if you want to get married, you know, for example, you have a choice of 5 girls. Similarly, you have 5 friends right now. So of those 5 girls, you just cannot focus on who is the most beautiful one, you know, who is the best friend. You just cannot focus on that. आपको ये भी समझना पड़ेगा यार कि ये नखरे बहुत ज़्यादा हैं इसके. For example, sorry for that analogy, but you just cannot go on the beauty. She's the most beautiful one, I want to get married to her. You cannot do that. You have to spend time. You have to understand compatibility है कि नहीं, whatever is that, right? I'm giving that analogy because that works for founders as well. So when you're looking for your co-founder, you just cannot go and say that, hey, Ayush is my best friend, so whatever the fuck, we both are good in marketing, but we will build a great company. You cannot. So you will have to find out कि यार मेरे 4 और भी दोस्त हैं जो आयुष इतने बढ़िया तो नहीं है, उतनी ब्यूटीफुल लड़कियां तो नहीं है शायद वो, लेकिन वो कंपैटिबल ज्यादा है, तो मतलब उनके साथ वो शायद टेक देख लेगा, आई लुक एट मार्केटिंग और आई लुक एट टेक. सो यू हैव टू बी स्मार्ट, यू नो, यू कैन नॉट जस्ट बी ऑलवेज इमोशनल अबाउट द आउटर एस्पेक्ट्स.
मतलब बहुत सारी चीजें ऑन द वे भी सीखनी पड़ती है ना, ऐसे सारी चीजें थोड़ी पता है सबको.
99.9% चीजें ब्रो ऑनलाइन ऑन द गो ही सीखनी पड़ती है. 0.01% ही पता होता है. दैट्स व्हाई बिल्डिंग और स्टार्टिंग इन कॉलेज इज द बेस्ट टाइम, बिकॉज तुम इतने नाइव होते हो कि तुम्हें ये भी पता नहीं होता कि यार मेरा रिटर्न कौन भरेगा, इनकम टैक्स, है ना. मतलब वो भरा तो गवर्नमेंट आके तुम्हारा बिजनेस रोक देगी, पर तुम्हें तब तो पता ही नहीं होता कि पेरेंट्स भर रहे होते हैं तुम्हारा रिटर्न या खुद का व्हाटएवर. बट यू जस्ट नो कि आई एम गुड इन मैथ्स, दैट्स व्हाई आई एम इन एन IIT और अ बिट्स और व्हाटएवर. सो इट्स वेरी नाइव बट बेस्ट टाइम टू स्टार्ट.
ऐसा करना सही रहता है कि पहले एक स्किल सेट डेवलप करो आप अपनी, फिर आप एक स्टार्टअप को मतलब अपना आइडिया सोचो, या फिर पहले स्टार्ट आइडिया सोचो और अगर वो फेल होता है तो स्किल सेट तो है ही नहीं आपके पास, तो आप तो मतलब कहीं के नहीं रहे.
यार ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है ध्रुव. आई थिंक आइडिया, स्किल सेट और ये सब बहुत ज्यादा एलिमेंट्री चीजें हैं. बहुत एलिमेंट्री भी नहीं है, सब बहुत सेकेंडरी चीजें हैं. एलिमेंट्री
भैया आई थिंक कि जैसे किसी चीज के बारे में मैंने पहले सोच लिया, देन लाइक नॉलेज अपने आप आ जाएगा. क्योंकि अगर उस फील्ड में जो चीज का यूज है वो हमें नहीं पता, तो वी विल सर्टेनली लुक फॉर इट. हम लोग ट्राई करेंगे. यस,
you have to be crazy enough to look for it. Like Ritesh Agarwal started OYO at 19, so why can you not start a large enough company at 18 or 19? I think you can. He did not know shit. He does not know shit. He will not know shit. He will never know.
भैया एक और डाउट लाइक अभी आ रहा है, लाइक अभी आई एम वर्किंग ऑन एन आइडिया विद माय फ्रेंड. सो बेसिकली हमारा आइडिया के
name, sorry, I think the one
Priyansh
like
Pandey.
Sorry, what's your name?
I'm Priyansh Pandey.
अच्छा, okay, sure. Hi Priyansh.
तो हाँ जी, अभी मैंने क्वेश्चन पूछा था ना आपसे कि कब पता चलता है ड्रॉप करना चाहिए आइडिया, वही हूँ मैं. सो भैया मेरा डाउट ये था कि अभी हमारा एक आइडिया, मैं अपने फ्रेंड के साथ पे वर्क कर रहा हूँ. अब ऐसा स्टेज आ चुका है जहाँ पे हमें एक वेब पेज की जरूरत है या फिर ऐप की जरूरत है, और हम दोनों को ही डेवलप करना नहीं आता. सो लाइक अब हम क्या करें? या तो हम किसी तीसरे बंदे को बुलाएं, उसे लाइक शेयर दे कि भाई तू इतना ले ले और हमारे लिए वर्क कर, या तो हम खुद स्टार्ट करें. और हम दोनों ने लाइक खुद सीखना चालू कर दिया है अपना पूरा आइडिया छोड़ के. तो क्या होना चाहिए अप्रोच इस स्टेज पे?
प्रियांश ऐसे करते हैं अपन, एक ना गेम खेलेंगे अपन. सो फॉर एग्जांपल if I have a pot, so for example if we are in a circle and we have a pot in between, you know, we are on the circumference of the circle. मैं सही वर्ड यूज कर रहा हूँ क्या? ठीक है, circumference. हाँ, मतलब if we are on the whatever edge of the circle, whatever. So if there's a pot in between with 0 rupees in that, 0 rupees का मतलब है 0 का नोट रखा है. 0 rupees का नोट देखा आज तक? नहीं देखा, किसी ने देखा, ठीक है. But imagine if there's 0 rupee note in that pot. If I tell you that if you, both of us have to pick that pot, you know, if you pick it first, it's yours. If I pick it first, it's mine. And we play that game. Will you be interested in playing that game?
No.
Why?
क्योंकि कुछ वैल्यू ही नहीं है. अगर मैं जीत भी गया तो 0 रुपी.
अगर आप दोनों जो co-founders हो आज, if you do not believe that you can create that application, that means that business has 0 value. So even if you win, you will both get 0, right? Or if you have 50-50%, you have 50-50% with you right now, shares. You mentioned that word, that's why I'm bringing that example. दोनों के पास 50% है, but 0 है ना उसकी value अभी. If you bring a third person who complements you, who gets 33%, you get 33, whatever. If you build $100 billion company, then there is value, you know. So don't play a game, and you will never want to play a game which even if you win, you don't win. So, you know, always get a person who can complement your skills.
Bhaiya, do you think that there will be saturation in the market after some years? Like कोई भी field के बारे में हम सोचते हैं, there is already some 3-4 companies and doing well in that area. Like YouTube पे भी अगर कुछ सर्च करते हैं तो lots of videos कम उसी के बारे में, चाहे कुछ भी सर्च करें. So how like कोई मान लीजिए नया business खड़ा करना चाहता है in that same area, how he should अप्रोच, लाइक कोई फॉर एग्जांपल इन यूट्यूब पे भी कोई नया वीडियो अपलोड करना चाहता है, तो पहले से ही और सारे इतने अच्छे वीडियोस हैं जिस पे इतने व्यूज हैं, तो नया कैसे ग्रो करेगा?
How many of you have heard about Zepto? Any of you
Yes.
have heard about Zepto?
Yes, yes.
Many of you.
Yes, yes, I have.
You know, now before Zepto, Instamart used to exist. Before Zepto,
Hmm.
Big Basket used to exist. Now both Instamart and Big Basket are. I have stopped ordering from them. I just order from Zepto. It's like a 6-month-old company. Big Basket is a 10-year-old company in the same space. You know, I think if you solve a large enough problem or find a small enough gap which can change the consumer experience, I think you're done. For example, let's take a simpler example. There are so many celebrities in Bollywood, you know, or Hollywood or whatever, but still, Sushant Singh Rajput or obviously, sorry for taking his name, but in general, like upcoming celebrities who are very new make it big because they have their own niche. They know how to talk, they know how to act in a different way. So it's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too saturated. अगर आज भी आप सोचते हो कि fintech space in India is like pretty much saturated, it's a wrong thought. If you go deep enough, if you find inside the problem, I think you can still build a large enough business in the same space. Never saturated. It's never saturated. लाइक पेटीएम के आने के बाद किसने सोचा था यार फोन पे आएगा, क्यों, क्या जरूरत है, मतलब ऑनलाइन क्यूआर कोड एक बहुत है ना, मतलब उस क्यूआर कोड से पेमेंट कर देंगे, क्या जरूरत है यूपीआई की. पेटीएम फोन पे हैपेंड एंड देन गूगल पे हैपेंड. गूगल नेवर थॉट कि वो गूगल पे बनाएगा, बट गूगल पे आल्सो हैपेंड. सो आई थिंक it's never about saturation, it's about the small gaps or things that you can figure out. थोड़ा सा तो डिफरेंशिएशन सोचना पड़ेगा आपको इनिशियली टू गेट द कस्टमर. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल Zepto थॉट अबाउट 10-minute डिलीवरी. तो पहले उससे पहले 3 दिन में डिलीवर होता था या 2 दिन में डिलीवर होता था, तो 10-minute डिलीवरी हो गई. Similarly, you'll have to figure out some USP, but it doesn't have, you don't have to care too much about कि यार ये भी तो कर रहा है वो भी तो कर रहा है, उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. आप कितने ऑब्सेसिवली कर रहे हो सिर्फ उससे फर्क पड़ता है.
ओके
भैया, when we talk about believe in our idea, so like एक साइकिल सी आ जाती है. 2 दिन बिलीव बहुत तगड़ा रहता है कि यार फोड़ देंगे, ये हो जाएगा वो हो जाएगा. तीसरे दिन इतना गंदा लो आता है कि कुछ नहीं हो रहा, हम टाइम वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, इस पे कुछ नहीं होने वाला. चौथे दिन दोबारा वो बिलीव आता है, नहीं यार बहुत पोटेंशियल है, कर लेंगे कर लेंगे. मतलब ये 2 दिन अच्छा, फिर एक दिन बहुत बुरा, ये चल रहा है. तो उसमें लाइक आपके साथ हुआ था, और हुआ था तो आपने डील कैसे किया था?
जो होता है यार अभी भी होता है, और आई थिंक अभी मार्क जकरबर्ग के साथ भी होता होगा कि उसको लगता है यार मैंने मेटावर्स बोल तो दिया है, फेसबुक से नाम भी चेंज करके मेटा रख लिया है, लेकिन इन्वेस्टर्स तो बहुत ज़्यादा परेशान है, यूजर्स भी सोच रहे हैं कि हम कुछ तो प्ले कर रहे हैं. सो दिस हैपेंस एट एवरी स्केल. फॉर एग्जाम्पल मोदी को भी लगता होगा कि यार पीएम बन के गलती कर दी यार, हर कोई गाली देता है, कितना कुछ भी कर लो, कुछ भी कर लो, मतलब उसने चाहे पैंडेमिक संभाल भी लिया पर तुम लोग भी गाली देते होगे कि अरे यार समझा
Got it.
वो मरने ही थे भाई. वो तो यूएस में भी पीपल डाइड, इन एवरी पार्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड पीपल डाइड, बट वी वर स्टिल ब्लेमिंग मोदी. उसको लगा होगा कभी तो अकेला बैठ के बेचारा सोचता ही होगा ना बेचारा, यार वो भी तो आदमी है, सोचता होगा रात को 12 बजे जब नींद नहीं आ रही होगी कि अरे यार क्यों पीएम बने, सीएम ही ठीक थे गुजरात के अपन तो. So I think it's not people or stage dependent. It happens at every stage. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all.
Okay भैया.
Yeah, lot of questions. Yeah.
भैया आजकल लाइक इंडिया में स्टार्टअप्स कुछ ज्यादा ही हो रहे हैं, एंड लाइक जैसे शार्क टैंक में भी 1-2 बार मैंने सुना कि इंडिया में एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप की वेव जा चुकी है. सो हाउ लॉन्ग विल दिस कंटिन्यू? लाइक जैसे इसने बोला कि सैचुरेशन आएगा, लाइक इज इट ट्रू कि एट सम पॉइंट हाँ भाई बहुत ज्यादा स्टार्टअप्स हो गए वगैरह, ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है?
I don't think so. Think about the Silicon Valley example. Think about, I don't know how many of you read about Silicon Valley or not. India is still in the very early stages. Think about Silicon Valley or China in general, and you will know how many unicorns or how many startups they have generated. We are yet to build a Facebook out of India. We are yet to build an Airbnb out of India. We have not done that. We are very, very far from doing that, and it will take a generation to do that. So I think saturation is far off, and in another way, saturation never happens. It's always innovation. It's always innovation. Like for
I
example,
think वो जब
Anil Ambani was supposed to be a great businessman. All of you know about Anil Ambani. Who doesn't know about Anil? He's a great businessman, right? But He just filed for bankruptcy few months back. So it's churn, right? Churn also happens. You have great businesses, then they build wealth, they churn because they don't innovate enough, then new businesses come up. It's never a saturation, it's an ongoing cycle, I think.
आई थिंक जितने बिजनेसेस बन रहे हैं उतने फेल भी तो हो रहे हैं ना साथ में,
वही मैं
ये पे बीच में कांस्टेंट हो जाएगा।
हाँ, तो वो चलता रहेगा वो साइकिल। तो आप बिजनेस बनाओ, आप बड़ा बिजनेस बनाओ, आप वेल्थ बनाओ, इनफ वेल्थ बनाओ, ट्राई टू सस्टेन एज मच, बट इट माइट फेल। लाइक फेसबुक अगर इंस्टाग्राम और व्हाट्सएप को नहीं खरीदता, फेसबुक इज अ डेड बिजनेस। नो, इज एनीवन यूजिंग फेसबुक एनीमोर? नो, वी डोंट यूज फेसबुक। churn happens.
I think
Bhaiya,
there's a
like
question.
you took example for like Zepto, it's innovating new उसने 10 minute delivery वगैरह ये सब किया. Like Swiggy and Zomato, they are doing almost the same thing and still they both are successful. How? Like what's the difference in the working of Swiggy and Zomato?
Sorry, okay, so you know Zomato and Swiggy started in internet. Essentially, I think there is a very interesting trend that I've been able to find. You will always find the number one business and the number two business. You will never find the number three business. For example, Zomato and you need that competition. It's like government, you know. So Congress and BJP are the two governments, and you will have to have that by literal sort of a model where at least you have a competitor. If you don't have a competitor, it's going to be a monopoly, which is a even bigger problem, you know. So in internet, what I have realized is there are always going to be two large businesses, the number one, the number two, and number three will be irrelevant. So for example, we have Ola, Uber, was the third one? You don't know. We have Swiggy, Zomato was the third one, you don't know. You have Netflix, Amazon Prime was the third one. Okay, Hotstar, that's okay. You know, it's always gonna happen. So that's not a problem.
Okay.
दो तो एग्जिस्ट करेंगे ही, अगर तीसरा स्ट्रॉन्ग इनफ है तो एग्जिस्ट कर जाएगा, बट इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू essentially build a large enough business, I think.
Okay.
There's this one question on the chat box from Ashwin Kumar. They couldn't switch on their mic, so I'll just read it out. Sir, please elaborate about Metaverse. I have seen some graphical videos of Zuckerberg on YouTube about Metaverse.
Sure. Who's this guy who asked this?
Ashwin Kumar.
So Ashwin, I think just to speak more about Metaverse, but in general, Metaverse is going to be a camera-first world. Okay, so for example, today you do everything on this glowing rectangular screen. I don't call it a smartphone anymore because it's not smart enough. इतना सही तो है, मतलब it's rectangular. इसमें आप पूरी लाइफ स्पेंड कर देते हो 7 hours a day. Like today, if you look at the stats, India spends almost 10 hours a day on an average on this phone. Think about it. Like you are awake for 15 hours. 9 घंटे तो 8-9 घंटे तो लोग सो ही रहे होते हैं या खाना खा रहे होते हैं, for example, whatever. Out of the 15 waking hours, on an average, India is on phone 10 hours a day, which is like death of humanity. Because how can you spend your entire life when the entire world is in front of you on this small screen? It doesn't make sense. That's why I stopped calling it a smartphone. It's a rectangular glowing screen, right? Metaverse is going to be outside the screen. So when you talk about Metaverse, it's going to be a camera first world. So you wear a camera. Okay, so that's what smart glasses is all about. You wear a camera, and then the entire world is a canvas. So you don't have to restrict yourself within this 2D screen or a rectangular glowing screen. You can wear a camera if you want to watch, for example, a documentary on Netflix. You just switch on that app. In the thin air, you can have the entire thing and you can watch it like this. So you don't have the entire world where you live becomes the canvas. And I think that's very, very liberating and exciting. So that's what Metaverse is all about. It's going to be the coherence of the digital and the physical worlds that you live in.
Then, sir, the mobile phone companies will have a huge loss now.
It will not be a loss. You know, the ones who will innovate, for example, Nokia was one of the largest mobile phone companies 10 years back. They could not innovate to become a smartphone company and they died. You know, very painful death. Those who will not innovate from smartphones into smart glasses. So, for example, Xiaomi is one company I think you might have heard about. Some of you might be using MI phones or whatever. MI has already introduced smart glasses because they know that people will shift from these smartphones to smart glasses. If they don't innovate, they will die. So yeah, I mean, company to company, कुछ तो हाँ, some will die for sure. अगर सैमसंग ने अपने ग्लासेस नहीं बनाए थे तो nobody will buy Samsung phones.
भैया लाइक ये थोड़ा ऐसा क्वेश्चन है, आपने अपने पहली फंडिंग जो आपको मिली होगी, आपने उसे क्या किया था?
मैंने उससे 10,000 रुपए की पार्टी की थी यार। सबसे पहले तो जितने पैसे मिले थे ना, पहले सबसे पहले हम गए सारे टीम मेंबर्स को लेकर, और हमने, पता नहीं है कितना सेफ है बोलना, बट हमने कहा आज अनलिमिटेड दारू है सबके लिए। तो so I think celebration is an important part of becoming an entrepreneur. I think you always are in that stress or worry or whatever. I mean, you always want to become larger and larger every day, every month. So you're always in that phase. It's always good to spend an hour or two when you can really celebrate. So yeah, with my first check, we did spend 4 hours in the bar and we were really high. So I don't know if that.
मतलब भैया बेसिकली मतलब आपने कुछ सेविंग की थी फॉर फ्यूचर प्लान्स और आपने पूरा एक साथ इन्वेस्ट किया था, रीइन्वेस्ट किया था?
किया था यार, ऑल इन जाना पड़ता है ब्रो. You cannot save much. You have to be cognizant of the road. Basically, what's that called? The runway, so-called runway. I think अब तो ये बस है काफी ज्यादा. बट हाँ, रनवे थोड़ा बहुत सोचना पड़ता है कि यार इससे कितना भी मान लो मैंने 20 करोड़ रेस किया है तो आई कैन गो फॉर 6 months if I hire these men. वो तो फाइनेंशियल मॉडलिंग एंड ऑल इज देयर. But I don't know. That's not much to worry about, if you keep building the right product, and I think you won't have a problem of money.
Got it.
हाँ, और पार्टी जरूर करना जब पहली फंडिंग मिले तो जरूर से बढ़िया पार्टी.
हेलो
जब
एक जैसे आपने जो पेटीएम और ये गूगल पे वाला बोला था ना, तो पेटीएम एग्जिस्टिंग था, फिर गूगल पे लॉन्च हुआ, तो एक तरह से वो भी हुआ ना, पेटीएम का कॉपी करके आया, पर पेटीएम का भी बाजार थोड़ा मतलब फर्क पड़ा उससे. तो काइंड ऑफ इस सिचुएशन में ना, इफ आई एम इंटरेक्टिंग विद एन डिफरेंट पीपल और मेरा आइडियाज उन लोग से हम बात करते हैं ना, एक सेंस ऑफ इनसिक्योरिटी रहता है, क्या पता वो कॉपी कर लेगा या काइंड ऑफ वैसा रहता है. आपके समय आपके साथ भी ऐसा कुछ था क्या?
यार मुझे तो नहीं लगता, because it's like, again, let's go back to the relationship wala analogy. So you can never really know. So for example, if you're trying to impress a girl or whatever, you will never really know what goes inside her mind. She can have some actions. She can say that I like this, I like that. वो कुछ दो चार बातें तुम्हें समझ में आ जाएगी कि यार शॉपिंग का शौक है या फिर she likes this coffee. So you can impress her on that. But you will never really know what goes inside her mind. And that's the problem. Similarly, if you are building some fintech company, those who look at you might be able to say कि भाई हाँ केशव ये बना रहा है, केशव पेटीएम बना रहा है, but तुम्हारे दिमाग में क्या है वो कभी किसी को पता नहीं चलेगा. So now you are that girl who can do whatever, because nobody knows what goes inside your mind. So your vision and your thoughts cannot be replicated. So don't worry about replication at all. People can just replicate your ideas in action, and that's like just the tip of your iceberg. So you don't worry about that.
Thank you.
Shaurya, would you have time to take more questions? Because
to max, because I have a 6 p.m. hard stop.
Sure.
Yeah, 2 minutes I can take 1 or 2, but that's okay. Yeah.
We'll take last 2 questions. So
Sure.
I think Priyansh, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
No, actually, वो पहले sorry, I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, great. So thanks Tanya for this thing. Very interesting conversation. I think very interesting questions as well. Great to have.
Thank you so much, Shaurya, for your time. It has been an interesting weekend for us, and this was just like the cherry on top for us. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I hope you had a lot of fun in Novice Fiesta, and I hope you guys continue this journey with us in ESEL. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bhaiya,
Thank you, Bhaiya.
the relationship ones were really nice,
The analogies, yeah. I generally give that analogy. It's very relatable, yeah. सबके सब relate कर सकते हैं ना उससे.
Got it. Thank you, Bhaiya.
Great, thanks, guys. Have a great
Thank you.
weekend. Bye.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
Bhaiya.
Bye-bye. Stay safe, everyone.
Nimisha.
Right. Who is this? Dhruv. I think he's on hold.
Sure.
Should I just remove him?
You can like stop the recording.
Stop the recording, yaar. That option is with Tanaya.
Okay, sure. Leave.
Let me call her back.